Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. In today's program, we will delve in one of the important geopolitical events that is happening in the neighboring country, India. That is the general elections of India 2024. A staggering 969 million voters are said to, of course, use their right to vote in these elections. And as the first phase of these elections have already commenced on April 19, the wave of Modi that was, of course, anticipated is not witnessed as such. In today's program, we will be talking about different dimensions, the complexities of this election in India, and around 543 seats of Lok Sabha, that is the lower parliament of India, are up for grabs. What are the dimensions? And of course, this is one of the largest democratic exercises that is being done in India, and this is one of the largest democratic exercises of the world. And this election is spanned over 44 days, and of course, the results will be announced on June 4th, 2024. Of course, in today's program, we will also be talking about Modi era. What were different dimensions of his era as far as the domestic and foreign policy of India is concerned. Of course, we know that a lot of concerns were raised by the Muslims as well as other minorities within India, how the voter sentiments are going to be witnessed in coming days. We will be talking about all these dimensions because these elections in India are not only important for the domestic voters of India, but also this is going to be having an impact on the regional dimension and as well as the larger geopolitical environment. In today's program, we will be talking about all these complexities, the implications of these elections in India as well as the global implications for democracies across the world. To discuss this and more, we're joined in the studios by Mr. Naveed Aman Khan, who is political analyst. Welcome to the program. We're also joined by Mr. Sheharyar Khan, who is a senior analyst. Welcome to the program. And we're joined online by Dr. Asma, who is executive director at Center for International Strategic Studies, AJK. Welcome to the program. Dr. Asma, let me start with you with the basic question when we talk about these Indian elections. How do you see this democratic exercise, especially when we see that the first phase of these elections commenced on April 19? How do you view the voter turnout? Of course, the results cannot be announced before June 4th as per Indian laws. But how do you see the voter turnout and voter sentiments? Are they aligned with the expectations that were anticipated?
Definitely, it's a very interesting situation for India, especially for India and for the region and the world. Number one, the elections in India was largest electoral exercise in the world. I would not call it the democratic exercise at all, because as per international institutions, India is the largest electoral autocracy, no more a democracy, thanks to the policies of Modi and BJP. Then the voter turnout, definitely it is good, but we have to see that states which are suffering under Modi regime, just as Nagaland, Manipur, and all those states where people feel that they are not part or they're not stakeholder in the governance system of India, there the voting ratio was lower, and in some of their towns, there was 0% voting as well. So when a specific community decided to refrain or participate from the electoral process, it says a lot about the sanity or the what would it say the quality of the electoral process or elections. Number two, it is really important to see that pre and post poll rigging by Modi regime is also alarming and setting new trends in India. Have you, I would like to ask that, have you ever seen a sitting prime minister sending a sitting chief minister to jail over vague allegations? No. Have you ever seen a government sitting in power, freezing the accounts of the opposition party so that they can practically be dysfunctional to run their electoral campaign? These elections were the first elections in India where the election manifesto of BJP, which they think would be election winning slogan or mantra, that was based on religion, that was based on Hindutva, that was based on promises to convert or make India a Hindu Rashtra state, that the religion has been used to grasp, to attract the voters shamelessly. And then if you have seen the election campaign of Mr. Modi, it was full of venom against Muslims. Again and again in his electoral election speeches, Modi mentioned Modi presented Muslims as some external power, as which is exactly what Hindutva ideology says, that Muslims were migrated to South Asia and they are not son of soil, and that is why they should leave the region, and they don't have equal rights on the land. And Modi was openly discussing, propagating, supporting this idea. And that is why when you see the conscious rationality of India, famous scholars like Arundhati Roy, like Rana Ayub, like Ashok Smile, there are several scholars who are writing against these campaign
Concerns, right, right, very eloquently put forward by you, Dr. Asma. And let me move the discussion now to the studios. Mr. Naveed, of course, like Dr. Asma alluded to, different issues that may impact the voter sentiment. But in your opinion, how much the issues like rising unemployment in India is going to be impacting, especially the youth voter within India? Because we know that, of course, since January we have witnessed how Modi has been campaigning and targeting specifically the Hindu voters. So do you think that these things are going to be impacting somehow the voter sentiment, of course, once we have completed the first phase and now we are going to be witnessing the second phase of Indian elections?
Oh yes, definitely, because more than 250 million Indians, they have been dropped beneath the poverty level in India during the last 10 years. And all those youngsters who are, waiting for any relief or any package from Indian government led by Modi, they haven't yet received any sort of relief from the government as far as their future is concerned. So seeing that bleak future in the country, the youngsters are annoyed and they are not going to vote for Modi any longer, I think. And the reaction from the youth is seen in different parts of the country in the first phase of the elections, where on the 19th of this month,
April,
the election is held. And in the other following states of India, again, the entire India is suffering the same,
economic despair.
Economic disparity and despair. The focus of Indian government led by Modi has always been to Kashmir, to Pakistan, and to the minorities, to suppress all these Kashmiris and the minorities, especially as far as the employment is concerned.
Right, right. And let me take the same point to Sheharyar. Sheharyar, when we talk about, of course, the voter sentiments in these elections, how much of a factor would be the recent Ram Temple inauguration in India? Do you think that is going to sway voters in Modi's favor, specifically the Hindu voters that, of course, Modi was targeting?
So, Maryam, the emotional appeal when it comes to Prime Minister Modi is like there very prevalent in his voters as well. Especially if you look at the dynamics that or the visuals that Prime Minister Modi basically
the
gave.
optics that we have been witnessing.
Yes, exactly. And we like see all of these optics are built upon the repression of the Muslim society in India as well. Other than the inauguration of the Ram Temple, which basically was the starting point of Prime Minister Modi's electoral campaign, we also see that the Indian Citizenship Act, which is like very directly focused towards the Muslim minority. There are a lot of like refugees from across the region are eligible to go to India, but not of any Muslim origin. Other than that, there is also this government move on basically curtailing interfaith marriages as well, which they have termed as, they're like giving very strange terms to it, like love jihad or like, all of these things. So you can like see that there is an emotional appeal in the Hindu majority society, which basically sees Prime Minister Modi as a savior of India, as a vanguard of Hindu nationalism. And this is like moving India more towards a Hindu majoritarian or a Hindu Maharashtra state. And they're very willing to let go of their secular credentials on which the whole idea of the Hindu state was, or the Indian state was built in 1947. But I also see that with the rising youth bulge in India, a lot of like people in the third term, they do take some sort of like attraction from this image of Modi, but they also have like some real issues that need to be addressed as well. So this appeal this time around, because we saw that in the last election campaign, Prime Minister Modi also used this whole false flag operation against Pakistan to rally his voters behind, his BJP party. This time around, he's like focusing more on showing his image as a high Hindu priest and like a religious figure which has the the preferences or of the Hindu state in mind. But again, when it comes to job opportunities of the youth, governance issues other than infrastructure and job
and talking
creation.
about governance issues, of course, the recent farmers protest was one of the biggest in history as well in India. And of course, when we talk about the impact of this farmers protest, because we know that farmers in India have been protesting for quite some time now, but previously there were of course divisions within farmers sections, like when we talk about the Jat community within, but still, but at this point in time, they are also aligning against Modi. But do you think that that vote is going to be of any significance in the outcome of elections?
So in the context of Punjab and Haryana, where most of these farmers protests are taking place, there definitely is a resistance against Modi's policies when it comes to controversial laws, when it comes to like farmers, when it comes to agriculture, lands. I don't see this like going into the rest of the states in India. So over there, obviously, Modi and like his government would be focusing more on infrastructure, on job creation, on regional issues as well. But local politics is also like very important. And in that, like job creation, the quality of education, that is like something that the youth of India basically are asking from the Modi and his party. Right now, when it comes to opposition parties, I don't like see a lot of resistance that they won't be able to come up with a big challenge to the BJP, even though most of the opposition parties have now come together and they're presenting a united front. Even right now, in the elections in 2019, the Congress couldn't really make a dent in the seats, and
that
they
was
probably got like around
poor
50
performance when we talk about 2019 elections.
So I don't see them posing a threat.
But Dr. Asma, what do you think is the reason of course, opposition political parties not presenting a strong front to BJP and Modi and against the Modi's policies? How much of a factor is this, the freezing of accounts of opposition leaders? Do you think that is one of the factors that, since they are not able to, of course, build that kind of narrative against Modi, is going to be impacting the chances of these opposition political parties? Or do you think that Congress that has led India over 5 decades is becoming irrelevant with the passage of time?
Number one, the Modi's oppressive tactics before pre-poll tactics against the political parties of India were not only limited to sending them jails or freezing their accounts, but they also been charged or slapped with various judicial notices about on tax issues and different such issue, just to exhaust them and defocus them from the original issue, which is the election campaign. And then there were government machinery was used to stop all those or to limit the possibilities of the exercises on all those election campaign by the opposition parties. So that was one of the reason as well, because as you see, the head of the different political parties were in jail, and they were not allowed to openly and they didn't have money, of course, because of the freezed accounts. And freezed accounts definitely played an important role, because if someone wants to go anywhere, he needs money to fuel or to support that logistics. But in the absence of money, the opposition parties, they had logistical issues, they had motivational issues, but still I think that opposition parties under their opposition alliance called India, they were unable to formulate an effective, cohesive, comprehensive, multi-dimensional campaign which also works on perception building. Just like BJP is the best perception builder in India, they are best propagandist, and they make their vote bank believe in all the, I would say, irrational things Modi claim. For example, recently in an electoral campaign, Modi said that if Congress would come into power, it would take the money from Hindus and give it to the outsiders. And from outsiders, he means Muslims. So, but the opposition parties in their collective alliance, they were unable to counter that perception and create their own perception. They did not they could not show the flip side or the actual side or the less popular side of the truth to the common man. And Modi's whole, if you see the political journey of Mr. Modi, it only flourished after the genocide, Gujarat genocide, which was a massive genocide of Muslims living in Gujarat. And after that, Modi never lost any elections, and he was only flying high in political realm. And his only credential was to overlook the massacre, to use government machinery to conduct that genocide, and that's it. And if someone has any doubt, he can read Rana Ayub's book Gujarat Files. And Modi's
Dr.
Islamophobia
Asma,
was
Dr. Asma, just an intervention I want to ask you. Do you think that lack of leadership at the part of these opposition India alliance is also a factor? Because we see a lot of divide regarding the division of seats within this alliance as well, and a lot of people are still confused who is the leader of this India joint alliance. So do you think that is also a factor, because Modi is being presented as this Masiha, while on the other side there is no political figure that people can look up to?
I would use the term effective leadership, because Rahul Gandhi is there, Mamata Banerjee, Kejriwal, there are so many other personalities, but definitely no one matches the charisma of Modi, which Modi has gained since 2014 as the here it is important to mention that BJP as a political party also is like Modi defines BJP. BJP doesn't define Modi. Modi is identity of BJP. So BJP also competed in these elections only on the face of Modi, that this is our leader and see what he can do. But in for Congress, I would say, the opposition alliance, I would say that Rahul Gandhi had very effective Hind Yatra as well, when he walked all through all of India and met local people and try to be part of them. But lack of effective media campaign, lack of effective perception building strategy, and utilize all political opposition parties for to defeat Modi was very obvious in the electoral campaign of opposition parties. And somewhere it was also a problem, as you rightly pointed out, that who would lead the opposition, who would be the leader. All those opposition parties, part of it, they didn't want Rahul Gandhi or any single leader to emerge as the face of opposition. So that also didn't play well in the favor of opposition alliances. And then, of course, I would give like 60% credit to the propaganda mills of Mr. Modi, that the way they created a bubble of disinformation and bubble of information and filled it with disinformation to create a certain euphoria for the Indian public, to make them believe for those things which never happened under Modi. For example, right now the unemployment ratio in India is the highest in last 45 years. And this is the biggest truth. This is the inconvenient truth with which Modi or its propaganda mills or Indian government never highlights or discuss, or even the so-called free media of India is not allowed to discuss it in their channel. For example, this
Right, of course, of
element.
course, of course. Point well taken. Let me include Mr. Naveed as well. How much of a factor do you think that caste, religion, and identity politics is going to be playing in these recent elections? Of course, we know that Modi has full control over Indian media as well. So, do you think that caste, religion are going to be impacting, or do you think that most of the youth are going to be looking towards the factors like unemployment rates and other issues?
Both are working there. The unemployment issue is also very important and have a very serious impact on the Indians during the term of 2 terms of Modi as well. But the caste and creed is also being affected. One thing which is also very important as far as Modi's policies are concerned is his policy of expansionism. He has focused on the expansion policy. Just look back in 2019 when he swallowed Kashmir against Article 370, and now Modi has threatened Sri Lanka that it will take back or capture that Thivo island from Sri Lanka, which is a part of Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka has control on it. And Modi has said that Modi or his government will forcefully take that island from Sri Lanka, which will create really a serious problem in the region. And this expansionism will really focus on the other neighboring countries as well.
Because Modi claims that it was given to Sri Lanka under the Congress government.
No, it was amicably resolved. In 1974, when former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi resolved that issue with Sri Lanka, so it was an amicable resolution. It was not a gift which was given to Sri Lanka. It was a part of Sri Lanka, and it was amicably resolved. So India cannot take it back or snatch it back. It will create another tension in the region.
So this is also part of Modi trying to rewrite history, as we are seeing many incidents of rewriting Muslim history in our textbooks as well. But Sheharyar, how do you see that India's foreign policy has evolved over the years, especially in the last decade under Modi's era and under this regime? Because we know, like of course Mr. Naveed rightly alluded to the recent incidents, and of course there are other incidents of extrajudicial killings in foreign lands as well. So how do you see this foreign policy that has evolved?
Maryam, like under the prime ministership of or leadership of Prime Minister Modi, we've like seen an India which is like more expansionist and more aggressive when it comes to taking forward their foreign policy goals in neighboring countries as well. Other than territorial issues that have always been there, like Sri Lanka, especially China, Pakistan as well, and passing laws which basically appropriate land
Occupied Kashmir
illegally.
is the
and
worst example of
Occupied
this.
Kashmir is a very good example to like see. Other than that, very recently we also like saw that all the dissident elements that had basically escaped the wrath of the Indian government, and they had like settled. We have like the prime example of Canada. We have like examples coming from Pakistan now as well. The whole disinformation campaign that Dr. Asma is like mentioning. The EU Disinformation Lab also like gave a report in which like they saw that the Indian establishment was very active in propagating half-truths or disinformation across the world. So this always has been one of the tool in Modi's toolkit, in which they want to like show an India which is assertive, show an India which is more aggressive. And this expansionism is not just contained towards Pakistan, but also to like smaller states as well. If you look at Nepal, if you look at Sri Lanka, these are the states that are feeling that India is like being more playing a role of a regional bully now. And this comes under the backdrop of the Western countries that basically see India as a pivot against the rise of China. So they're like putting in investments in it, they have like defense pacts. So this is like giving a false sense of confidence to the Indian establishment led by Prime Minister Modi.
Right. But you mentioned about the crackdowns on dissent and disinformation in India. Do you think that this is going to be impacting the voter sentiments within India?
So what we are basically seeing, if we basically analyze the evolution of the Indian society, we see that a lot of like people under the rhetoric or the rise of the Hindutva politics under Prime Minister Modi, I think like the Indian society is like okay, or they are basically accepting the fact that there will be erosion of civil liberties, and that erosion of civil liberties, human rights, minority rights, curtailing the freedom of media, curtailing dissident journalists. So
and even crack down on opposition parties as well in
crackdown on
different
opposition
ways.
parties. So this is under the perception of the Indian voter, this is being built on the foundations of very strong and assertive economy. So people are basically saying that if India is like doing well economically, emotionally there is an appeal that now India is like more of a Hindu majoritarian state. And Dr. Asma also mentioned this, and a very famous French philosopher, Christophe Jofflot, who is an expert on India as well, he basically now calls India electoral authoritarianism. So he says that the democratic and the secular credentials of India are a thing of the past, and now it's more of a Hindu majoritarian state. And under that state, I think the Indian society has kind of like accepted that there won't be a lot of civil liberties. This will be an India in which a lot of like minorities will be persecuted. Any opposition that appears to be challenging Modi's role in India's politics will be falsely persecuted and put in jail. And that is like something that they're accepting. Maybe in the short run, this will probably give them some sort of like dividends. But as we have like seen in history, such curtailment or like such a crackdown on human rights and civil liberties doesn't really have a very good future. And we have like seen this in the Middle East as well. We're like seeing this in India.
The social,
unfortunately,
the social divide
West,
that is going to be,
Yes.
of course, witnessing. We are going to be witnessing in future. Of course, the time will tell us. But Dr. Asma, when we talk about the geopolitical tensions, especially with the neighboring countries like Pakistan and other neighboring countries as well, do you think that this also influence the voter perception of Modi's leadership, and also your take on India's foreign policy that has evolved under Modi's leadership in the past decade?
Modi's foreign policy under its external affairs minister was based on aggression, aggressive postures, undiplomatic languages, and India and trying to emerge India as an international broker or relevant to the international peace and security, but through very aggressive means. When we see, and that is what resulted in isolation of India in the region. When you see that with Nepal, India doesn't have cordial terms. In Maldives, the president has again won the election, and the analysts are writing that it means that Maldives chose China over India. So the India's game in the of influence in Maldives has been ended. Then comes similarly Sri Lanka. I don't think that a territorial island dispute which was settled by Congress effectively, there was any need for Modi to raise that issue and tell that that need to be rediscussed with the Modi regime. That played definitely, that created insecurities in Sri Lanka and negatively affected the bilateral relations between the two countries. And above all, it negatively affected the India's role or Indian state perception as responsible international actor, because mature states, they don't undo the agreements and political agreements with the change of political regimes. But this is what exactly Modi regime is doing, and that made India an unreliable partner. Whether it was Russia-Ukraine conflict, or it is even Arab-Israel conflict, India is in order to and when we see Modi's, another thing, that Modi's foreign policy was based on appeasement of local vote bank. He creates a sense or a perception in local vote bank to side by Modi, to by using or by damaging India's relations with other countries, because he want to emerge as a superhero for Indians. And this reminds me that recently there is a report, maybe yesterday it was a report, that 55.12 anti-Muslim tweets across the globe were initiated from India. So this is what Modi has converted India into. This is what India is today. And believe me, that for 52% people would vote for Hindu Rashtra. They would vote for Mr. Modi. So Modi, they are not even, they don't want to see truth. For them, truth is what Modi or BJP says, how Modi and BJP presents a scenario. That is a truth for them. So they have this horse blinds right now, and I have no doubt to say that since 2014, Modi has emerged as a cult leader. Here, it is with reference to your last question to other panelists, it is important to mention that Modi himself belongs to a Dalit caste. He is a Dalit. But it is really interesting that how a Dalit face has been used to attract all castes of India, to make Hindutva ideology superior, or the dream of Hindu Rashtra superior than the caste discrimination. And this is also sad to see that by using a Dalit face could not help lower castes in India, and there were still the massacres, the mob lynchings, and to make all those lower caste people's lives more vulnerable, more disgraceful in India under the leadership of a Dalit Prime Minister, which Mr. Modi himself is.
Dr. Asma,
So this
right, Dr. Asma, but coming back to the foreign policy change of India under Modi's leadership, do you think there is also a change when we talk about the previous foreign policy of India, that was of non-alignment, and now we see India a tilt towards US and Israel? So do you think that is also another shift in India's foreign policy, and how do you see this playing out in future if Modi is given another term?
number one, when we see Modi's policies, Modi is rebranding what has already been done by Congress. So non-aligned policy was a foreign policy of Congress. So Modi rebranded it under the title of strategic autonomy. And this is similar of non-aligned. But again, like Congress used non-alignment only as words and aligned with certain powers under that category. But similarly, under this idea of strategic fake, false, so-called strategic autonomy, India is allied with Russia. India is allied with the US, with Israel, with Muslim countries at the same time, and that shows that economic interests or industrial ideas or interests, they are more superior than the any other performance of a state, whether it is no more a democratic state, it falls under the category of autocratic state, it is involved in gross human rights violations, or it has become a rogue state, which is from the incidental fire of BrahMos cruise missile, to leading to the extrajudicial and extraterritorial killings of the political opponents across the globe by Indian governments. What else you need to be qualified for being a rogue state? So this is how India became rogue state when it comes to foreign or defense policy, and this is what Modi has achieved, but unfortunately only because of the economic interest the international community finds in India relevant to India. For that reason, there is hue and cry. Countries, institutions are raising their voices. Scholars are writing their articles, but still it is not at that magnificent scale which it needs, which India deserves. So when you see the articles published in international media on Indian elections, almost like 95% of articles, they revolve around not believing in a level playing field in India for the opposition parties, and they don't even believe that it's a democratic process. For them, it's an electoral activity. And
Questions.
about
Right, right.
pre and post election rigging is also been highlighted in those articles, but as if it doesn't affect the domestic vote bank in India, because Modi have made them dumb, I would say, or puppets, mere puppets, like a cult leader. So Modi is not concerned what international media and institutions are writing about it.
Modi is not concerned about what international media and also the human rights organizations are writing, but do you think, Mr. Naveed, that this is going to be impacting the voters' perception of Mr. Modi? Like we see the Human Rights Watch and other international organizations like World Press Freedom Index is also, the rankings of India are pretty low. Do you think that is going to be playing a part when voters would come out in the second phase?
Maryam, one thing is very important to understand when we talk about Modi. We need to understand the dynamics of Modi's myth of politics. Modi has very successfully portrayed the myth of Hindutva in the minds of Hindus, and he has made it understand that the Indian state or Indian land is a land for the Hindus, not for the Indians. He also has successfully spread all this myth or this concept that the Indians, if they want to live in India, they will have to either live as a third level citizens, or they need to quit India, number one. And this polarization and this hatred and this divide, he has very successfully portrayed in the minds of Hindus, and that Hindu majority will vote to Modi, number one. Number two, in Tamil Nadu, BJP has lost in 2019 all 39 constituencies, and has never been comfortable in that state. To mobilize the voters of Tamil Nadu, Modi has given that slogan that he will, if he is the winner in 2024 elections, he will take the Theo island from Sri Lanka. So that shows how he is giving idea to the voters that he believes in the expansionism of India. Either it is geographical expansionism or it's physical expansionism based on terrorism or target killing in the entire world. And Pakistan has been the worst hit country in the entire world where Indian-sponsored terrorism has been taken.
Since 2022, more than
especially this year,
20, of course, people
20
have been
Pakistanis have been killed by Indians, and they claim that they have killed. It is more than that killing. They have killed, and they admit that they have killed, and they will continue killing. Pakistan will have to take this issue very seriously to the United Nations and the international community, that Pakistan will never be bearing it any longer. The expansionism or the target killing or the terrorism carried out by India in Pakistan.
Of course. And do you think, Sheharyar, that these regional dynamics and of course Indian agencies' role in foreign lands is going to be impacting Indian voters' sentiment or the elections outcome, or just the perception of Modi that has now been built, which is maybe now bigger than a Bollywood star? Do you think that this is going to be more influencing the voters' perception, which is mostly the young voter?
So, Maryam, when it comes to Indian government's extrajudicial killings in foreign soil, that doesn't really affect the internal voters of India as well. The internal voter of India is already very emotional, and this whole appeal of Prime Minister Modi, in which he basically shows himself as a Hindu priest leader of the Hindus of India, this gives him an image of aggressive leader. A leader who's like taking charge, and they are eliminating the enemies of India in foreign lands as well. So this is like giving more of a masculine look to the already
macho
aura
image of Modi.
So that like works with the Indian voters as well, especially the Indian voter who basically believe in Hindu supremacy.
They see him as a savior.
They see him as a savior. They see him as a leader of the Hindu majority
state for the Hindus.
State for the Hindus as well. Another point that you also discussed in your introduction as well, that in the first phase of the elections, we didn't really see a Modi wave this time around as compared to the previous elections as well. So that is some sort of like indication that the Indian voter now is looking at more regional and local issues as well, rather than just
or maybe
the image
the perception of Modi wave was not that true. Maybe the perception that was given to us, to the outside world and to the outside audience was not that much true. So that may be another factor.
The insecurity of the Indians within India is one reason, and the other reason is unemployment, raising unemployment, which is more than 250 million.
So voters are actually, of course, taking into account these factors as well.
Definitely, and we have seen all this reaction in the first phase of elections on the 19th of April this month.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Naveed Aman Khan, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. Sheharyar Khan, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. Asma Shakir. She is Executive Director at Center for International Strategic Studies, AJK. Thank you very much for joining us in today's program. Of course, the outcome of Indian elections is not only going to be shaping the trajectory of domestic politics of India, but also it is going to be impacting and having ramifications for the regional dynamics as well as on the global, of course, dynamics and for the global democracies. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.